Yeah, let's get started. Let's do, so this is a webinar. We're not gonna like, I uh I do want to present the information but what I really, really want is for people to like be empowered and free to ask questions. Uh so because that honestly, like teachers are some of my favorite people. I would I've never met somebody who's just boring. So just want to throw a few like things that may make you groan, but I've found them helpful. So virtual meeting norms kind of stuff. First of all, thanks for being here. Really grateful you all are here. I'd be happy to talk to Aleph. I could talk to Aleph about formative assessment all day, but there's just something I get a lot of. It fills my cup. It is my why. I don't know, whatever. To like be with other teachers who care about teaching well. So as far as dues, like do participate. If you want to ask a question, just click the raise hand button. Um, where is, which I feel like I've seen before. I don't know. I can't find it, but hopefully you guys can. Um, yeah, just click the raise hands button. We'll stop at when it makes sense and take questions. And really like key, if you had, please feel free to share this with your staff. Like, um, or some of this information or these ideas with your staff. CoGrader is better with colleagues or colleagues. So yeah, let's get into it. This is CoGrader. Wait, am I in the right one even? Here we go. There we go. That's the right one. Thanks, everyone. Uh, yeah, so like we all know the problems with teaching. We live it. Some of us are still in our classrooms as a direct example of it. These are just results from a couple different surveys, one from NEA. There's been some surveys from RAND, like a lot of stuff talking about how teaching is not necessarily a sustainable profession. And that's why we've been working on CoGrader. Basically, it's an AI teaching assistant that just drafts personalized feedback and grades on student writing, saving up to 80% of the time spent grading and improving learning outcomes. And I can tell you, like, literally my 10th grade lesson today, I teach 10th and 11th grade English, was using the feedback I drafted during my planning period this morning for 60 students to improve their writing. And I had students actually asking me about what the feedback said instead of what is the grade. It was amazing. Like, I'm telling you, it is possible. It can happen. And just like going through a couple do's, don'ts around. Basically, we believe that AI can help with that. We can be more effective with the help. There can be AI used for students' benefit. However, and this is a big deal, it can't replace teachers because our jobs are too hard. And like learning is based on that individual relationship. So like we're not looking for CoGrader to replace anybody. I'll show you the way I use it that helps me like do what I like to do in the classroom better and do less of what I don't like to do at home. Again, to provide really timely specific feedback. They wrote those drafts yesterday, by the way. So it it's kind of cool. I'll show you. But just a little bit about me. This is me. I really like playing disc golf. I don't know if anybody else can relate. I like it because it's cheap and I don't make a ton of money. I teach in Colorado, I teach 10th and 11th grade English, and I've been working in the district for 10 years. Did my first 3 at a charter school where I had 6 preps. I learned how to get really mediocre at everything. And I also learned that like sometimes it's not possible to do everything well. And honestly, that makes me feel like a bad teacher sometimes. Like I want to be really good at this because I believe it's important. And I've met a lot of teachers who come to these sessions who feel the same way. We want to do like we want to help our students as much as we can, but at the same time, we don't want to like martyr ourselves and sacrifice like our families, the rest of our lives, and the full level of like complexity that makes us humans that even want to become teachers in the first place. And that's kind of the goal. The goal is so that we can have it all. Um, so yeah, we're again agenda. If there's any admin in the call, hopefully you appreciate that. Um, but the goal here is I can prioritize feedback in the writing process because for me, I used to deprioritize it in favor of like planning. And when I started using CoGrader, that really switched my like the way I thought about it. So I'm going to show you just like the goal here. This is a writing process. Just do me a favor, like throw a thumbs up, something affirmative on the screen if your teaching involves like student writing. Like, yeah, just thumbs up. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Okay, right on. This like any kind of student writing, short form, long form, I find that it ends up going through similar like processes. But really, the most important process for writing for me, for students in school, is the drafting part. I find that my students struggle so much with drafting and getting their ideas down, and I struggle with actually giving them timely feedback. And really, like what I didn't realize when I was teaching newly is that like not only do students need feedback from me, where they can get the regular specific improvement points to like close the learning gap. I need the feedback from students so that I can plan things that are relevant. And that helps with engagement. And because I can grade and give feedback so much faster with CoGrader, that means that essay drafts can be a formative assessment. Like yesterday, um, sorry, I got to figure out how my phone's going to stop ringing. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So essay drafts can be a formative assessment where like last night I graded 60 essays, or this morning I graded 60 essays, and today like it informed what we did in class. I changed my lesson based on the patterns and trends that CoGrader gave me. And I want to like just before we move on, like what I'm going to do is just walk you through how I use CoGrader in a unit, as well as like what to use. This will translate to a lot of writing units, but the basic premise is students spend time doing the thing, get feedback, so that we don't just spin in this forever. They get feedback so they can revise and keep practicing. And that feedback loop ends up like being so fast that it just works. So stage one for most writing units, kind of pre-writing. For me, I find like, it's students are weirder and like more risk averse now, or maybe it's just me and I haven't set up the classroom climate right. I'm totally willing to believe that. But I have students that just will stare at a blank page until they write the thing perfectly in their head before they even start. And that's a massive problem because if you never start, there's nothing to revise. You can't give feedback. There's like, I don't know what to do with a blank page because I'm not telepathic. If you are cool, then you give feedback a lot faster than me. But so like for creative types of writing, I usually just start with a brain dump and some kind of way, like they'll write a ton of stuff, like a bunch of ideas down. And then I usually have some prompts that prioritize, like, cross out two of the ones you don't like. Pick three and then write three different ideas below each. And it ends up being like a kind of written concept map of what we've done throughout the unit, and for literary analysis anyway, this is what one of those concept maps looked like. One group of students did it on a board. And we were talking about like the power and corruptibility in Salem in the Crucible. We talked a little bit about mob psychology. We talked about like looking at things as good or evil instead of a continuum, and how that ends up creating a society where like if you're not with us, you're against us. It's not like that's relevant at all. And like this kind of thinking helps some of my students really get to that point. Then students write a draft. And that draft, I usually like I did yesterday. I had a sub yesterday. And we had prepared for the draft the Monday. Tuesday, we had a sub. So it was 55 minutes. And the students, like over half of my students wrote an essay. It wasn't like just to get feedback on. And most of them, because we've done this before, they were familiar with the process. They knew they weren't going to get like punished for the grade, etc. So I have them write a draft, then I use CoGrader. Just another quick one, just thumbs up if you've like used CoGrader before. Yes, thumbs down if you haven't, that's cool. Okay, we got a bunch of peeps who have, got some peeps who haven't, that's cool. Okay, right on. So I do have a few slides here that's just going through like how to use CoGrader. We don't have to like go through all of them in great detail, but import a class. There is one I want to focus on for a little bit because y'all are pros. And that one is this. When you tell CoGrader how to grade, like if you think of CoGrader like as ChatGPT, your rubric is your input. It's what you're telling CoGrader to do. It's like the command. So the better your rubric, the better the feedback and the output are. So what I often find, especially when I'm trying out a new rubric, is that like it's not grading anything like I want it to. And then I look at the rubric and figure out like, oh yeah, I was really unspecific here. So it's trying to do what I want and it's giving me a bunch of this other stuff. So like we've built an AI rubric generator kind of help with to help with that a little bit. Oh no. Um, Fair. That makes sense, Dan. Not yet, but there's a workaround. Hang out till the end. We'll help you with it. But you can use CoGrader to AI generate a rubric, and then you can edit it in CoGrader. Also, we're coming out with something that'll tell you specifically, like it'll come with some strategies that I've used for prompt optimization to like make the rubric to make the feedback a lot better. So we have that. Then another thing I want to focus on is the extra instructions are super powerful. These are the kinds of things I tell it. I tell it like, what grade level are the students? What is the purpose of the assignment? Like, what do I want them to get out of it? Are there key items? This is how you can make CoGrader grade like multiple question things, is you put your template in it and say specifically the students have not written that. So you can copy and paste like a Google Doc or a HyperDoc, paste it in there, tell CoGrader to ignore the HyperDoc and only grade the other writing, and it'll grade multiple things. So the extra instructions are super powerful. Like play with them. Tell it to do ridiculous things just because it's kind of fun. Step 5, start grading. Then I evaluate the feedback. And you can use this with a bunch of different LMSs, but what we have added, and tell me if you guys have played with this. I use this a lot today. For the review, if you see these little edit buttons, you can click it and it will use AI to revise the feedback to like use more examples from student writing. So I've been doing that, and it really like, that's why that student was still talking to me and I didn't get to drive to the Ed Center, is because we were talking about the suggestions that CoGrader had made to look at different things. And it weirdly knew certain specifics about the book, the things they carried that they were writing about. Like, because the AI model knew it. So it gave specific, like, take a look in this section of the book to continue your innocence knowledge motif argument. And it was really neat. I still like then use it manually to revise so that the feedback says what I wanted. Sometimes I put hyperlinks to the resources we've used in class into their feedback so they're clickable in Google Docs. But like really, I'm a big fan of clicking the doing the AI revisions there. I would show you in mine, but I don't want to like, drop student names and stuff in something that's being recorded. So again, hang out after, promise. Then I send the feedback to students. The export feedback button works a lot better. Worked great now. In Google Classroom, this is how their feedback will show up. It'll have glows, grows, action items. Although if you don't want glows, grows, and action items, you can specifically say so in the extra instructions, and a lot of times it leaves them off. It's kind of nice. And for me, that takes between 1 and 2 hours for about 90 students. But I had it down to 1 hour for 60 students today because I had 2 sophomore classes and today was a block day. It would take me at least 5 times as long to write that much feedback, and I would procrastinate it because I would dread the task. My students laugh at me. It's a reliable thing that I will grade late if it's a lot of work, because I put it off and put it off and feel like a worse teacher. And CoGrader is not just helping my students with that. I spend less time feeling bad, It's the mental, like the emotional feeling of I want to be good and I'm struggling to do it. Like I don't have that nearly as bad anymore. I'm just really grateful for that. So for these next few like examples and lessons, thanks, Dan. I'm glad I'm not alone. Thank you. So for the next few lessons, I use like a workshop model where we start, there's some kind of like intro and then mini lesson. There's some kind of getting started where like, let's do this quick thing so that I can figure out where you're going. Then for about 30 minutes, there's like some writing, usually applying what we did. And I often use that time while students are working in small groups or independently on writing to do the individual conferences, and that'll come up. I'll also show you how I use CoGrader for small group stuff. Then there's some kind of closing, and then we move. So this is stage 3, where I'm like planning lessons based on the whole class needs, as well as tiny groups that need things. So CoGrader makes it a lot easier to actually differentiate instruction because of the insights tool. So I look at the common positive points. I look at the common improvement points. This one, include more evidence and analysis to support claims and follow the provided structure for body paragraphs. Like my class wasn't doing that. So I started to ask why, and that's where my professional stuff came in, where I was like really reflecting on the lessons that we had done before and what was and wasn't working. Most did this, but some like did not. Most of the class had a thesis statement, which was like a surprise to me because students, but a lot of them did in this writing. But there were a few who like still had not grasped the concept of like, what are you arguing? What's your claim? So those I used, I pulled the insights. In CoGrader, you can export student data to a spreadsheet. So I do that, and then I sort the spreadsheet based on how students did in certain rubric categories. And that's how I build small groups. Because then I can take a look at just those 3 students' feedback. Sometimes I throw it in a chat GPT and ask for the common trends just to, I don't know, maybe I'm cheating a little, but whatever. And it'll then tell me like your lesson should be about this, or it tells me the common misconceptions they have about that. So I use the insights as well as the feedback that CoGrader generates that you can export to a spreadsheet. That's how I build small groups. And I'm actually able to get those things done in this amount of time without doing a ton of stuff outside of work. So this is like the kind of lesson I did. We, analyzed exemplars or mentor texts. I based them on the common improvement points. For me, both when I taught this unit as well as the lesson I did literally today, that was also about topic sentences. I can pull that up, but there was a mentor text, and I changed the things that we were looking for in the mentor text based on the insights from CoGrader. I also noticed that I stole this from New Vision's curriculum for New York City Public Schools. So it's a good thing. It's cross-curricular. It works really well. You just change, the part under the analysis and the part under the red. You just change it to match your content, and it's a really good cross-curricular like structure for reading closely. Students needed support with deepening their analysis. This is how we improved the thinking using this 3 reads protocol. And if you just Google 3 reads protocol, New Visions, it pops up. So we practiced this during the unit more this time than when I taught this unit last time. And it really showed what what students didn't know today was they didn't realize that like that is color coded to how they should be writing their paragraphs. So I went over that again today. And they started writing far more developed ideas. So that's the kind of lessons I plan for like improving their drafting, and then they have time to draft. Then sometimes I do another like CoGrader draft and round of feedback, or sometimes now I do some of your more standard revision activities. What's better though is now students have seen examples of good feedback and used them. So now when they give each other feedback, they're also better at it, which is like a bonus I did not fully appreciate until literally today. Here, if you want to steal this, if you're not on a phone, you're welcome to. I wrote a prompt to turn ChatGPT into an individual tutor. And I don't know if your schools are letting students use chatbots, but they have it on Snapchat anyway, with or without school's permission. So Snap AI is actually running GPT-4. It's pretty good. But if you like want to scan, or we'll here we go. I can just drop this in the chat. You're welcome to steal that. Go for it. Make a I think it forces a copy. Did I make it do that? Hey, I remembered to. Excellent. So yeah, make a copy, play with that. If students like follow that, it turns ChatGPT into a personalized revision coach, as well as how to make it proofread without changing any of the words in a student's essay. That way it can be like Grammarly, but faster. Especially for my students with like real bad dyslexia, that really helps them out. Yeah, and for these revision activities, I don't know if anyone else's students are like that. They would sooner, lose than just lose period than write another draft. But I find that like they're more motivated when they get the feedback instantly because it mirrors the kind of feedback they're used to getting from their phone games, which is instant. Um, Not well close to instant. This one's like, it lags by a day. I can do it in class though, using some of the new like update student submission tools. I did that a couple times today when students just didn't actually turn in the right document. Um, so yeah, I also like revision stations. I just like use whatever revision checklist I've got. But CoGrader lets me be more intentional so I can like revise the checklist using the feedback from the revisions. Then stage 5, final draft. And in an era of Chat GPT, I think students reflecting on their writing is more important than ever because Chat GPT is, sorry, I'm trying to think of how my Chat GPT does not have WRIS when it comes to reflection writing. No, just me. Okay. Sorry, I stopped teaching like an hour ago. I'm still struggling with not using the slang. Dan's my man. Thank you. I appreciate the obligatory laughs. So yeah, I use reflection questions like that and just have them handwrite a reflection, usually as I'm grading these in class with CoGrader. For grading the final draft, for the formative ones, I do not put the score on anything. They never see the number grade because then they actually read the feedback. It works. It's ridiculous because they'll read it to look for a grade. And it's just not there. Or if it's there, they don't know what I break my rubrics into youngling, Padawan, Knight, and Master for like, the Jedi Order. And now they know what that means. In the earlier beginning of the year, they didn't. But they read the feedback more according to research from like Hattie and a ton of other people, if you don't put a score on it. So yeah, I get trends and patterns. I use the insights. Actually, I'm really looking forward to using the insights with other people who teach the same thing, so we can actually compare if what we're doing is working. So I'm actually pretty excited to use CoGrader with my PLC, and with the rubric sharing, like that's a thing I can do now. Here's what a writing unit pre-CoGrader kind of looked like. And this is the ideal scenario where there's nothing going on in life. I'm not depressed. There's no union bargaining. All of my meetings get canceled. Like the, the thing that never happens. That would take about 14 class days, and there'd be some kind of unit hook, examples where we'd look through exemplar text. Then it's Saturday, Sunday, new lessons Monday, Tuesday. Then maybe they'd read a first draft on a Wednesday. Then we would have to do new lessons here while I'm grading. Then another week, more new lessons, then first feedback. Then we would have to jump back straight into excuse me. Then they would revise on the Thursday, peer review on the Friday, and then a final draft, or the unit would just go longer, right? Because I would have to be planning these new lessons because I don't know what my students should learn yet because I'm still grading. Here's how it looks now. I've actually shaved 3 days off the unit, or off this style of unit, because instead of having to plan new lessons while I'm also trying to grade and figure out what students need, I can do a first draft like after the brainstorm activity, or after we look at a couple examples, I can flip these 2 days, the second and third, and we draft on the next day. Then we do revision activities in class because the feedback comes the next day. Then I can have them do a second draft if I want. That's optional. Or we can switch into like peer revision stuff. A couple days of peer revision, a final draft, and then a day for writing reflection. So I can now shift my writing units. They're shorter. My students stay more attentive more often. And they use the feedback more, which it doesn't give me the feeling of they're throwing it in the trash on their way out. That it hurts my soul. And that's really the win there. Like, what's crazy is the technology for CoGrader is younger. It's 1/8. No, it's 1/4 the age of TikTok, roughly. that's how young ChatGPT is comparatively. So we're gonna keep like we're still figuring out how to use this kind of stuff. I just figured out how to make CoGrader grade like flip grids. It's really cool. So I'm gonna put that in the gold certification when I get around when I make it. But like we're still figuring out how to use this stuff, and there isn't like perfect best practices. So I'm really grateful you guys came to this. This is the sort of framework I'm using to discover things like that, though. Um, and this is the kind of framework that I really hope can be helpful to you all too. So, what questions do you have? Feel free to take a second, think. Feel free to like drop an idea in the chat. But if you have something to share, questions, criticisms, concerns, we could jump into AI ethics if people want, like wherever you all want to take this conversation. Feel free to type in the chat or raise hands. Practice and wait time. Hey, Dan.
Hey, and thanks for doing this, and I appreciate you appreciating my text chatter. I don't miss COVID. I come for a sec. Um, Also, yeah, everything you really said is like I really like vibe with. Like I think I am a few months behind you in my AI journey in terms of trying stuff, but I've been like doing the same thing with like prompt generation, with like not the same thing, but like trying out with like ChatGPT. Like, how do I create this? How do I get it to? How do I teach it? So I'm really excited to see if I can um utilize this stuff. And I just back on. I teach 10th grade, mostly 10th grade ELA. I'm in NYC, some in the New York post
Oh, cool.
schools, and awesome. And yeah, and I've been like I think this year I've been experimenting a lot with, like I said, like AI. But I so I guess I'd love to figure out if there's a way to. It's like a part of the DOE is just it's indiscriminatory, like what they've decided to block and not block. Even like Chat GPT, they've opened up, but they also haven't figured out any of the privacy regulations. It's kind of it's funny at this point. But even then, I wonder just like if I have to make an argument online for like I've requested this a couple times. I think they're just slow. But what have you been like any of like the naysayers, people that have really struggled to adapt? Us not just educators, but just like administration or something. Like what do you recommend saying there?
Um, that's a really good question. Because part of being like in Colorado, it is literally like I'm in Denver. It's literally the Wild West. It is the exact opposite. Like the idea that a Department of Ed, the DOE here doesn't even have the authority to tell a school district what to do and make sure it happens. So like it's we're living in opposite worlds and it's crazy. So that said, that means that really the people you have to convince in my type of school are principals. And principals often want a couple things. One, how's it going to demonstrably improve student outcomes? And if you cite, like I usually cite research from John Hattie, just because like his name is like a buzzword name for ed researchers. But if you Google like formative feedback research, you'll get a ton. So I start there, talk about how like feedback tends to help students grow more than a year's worth in a year time, while at the same time reducing work for teachers so that it frees us up to do more of the like building relationships. Unironically, like actually being able to do it, you know? So that's how I'd go for principals. For like the Department of Ed, like in the district I'm in, a weird amount of decisions are made because can the buses run? You know, like opening and closing times of schools are really made by the transportation department, not by, you know, people who are with students all day or like ed research. So the difficulty there is convincing the operations people. And there are some real privacy concerns with AI, just like there are real privacy concerns with students like having a smartphone at all, period. So what I usually talk to them about is I direct them to CoGrader's, there's a privacy policy page So I direct them to that. Some places have a specific process for vetting stuff. And some districts have a form you can fill out. New York City New York City is rough. Like it is, that form is complicated. It is not meant for teachers to fill out. It's really meant for vendors to fill out. So don't feel bad. I didn't understand most of the questions either. I sent them to Ada and Alf and and Vitor. But for like district, like higher up central office people, if you talk about, see you later, TJ, thanks. If you talk about like ways that this will improve outcome for students or ways that it can scale and increase consistency between schools and help teachers like work together so that all students are getting an equitable experience. I found that helps with like central office instructional admin. What helps with IT is the privacy policy stuff. CoGrader is FERPA and COPA compliant. And for ChatGPT, if you just turn off the chat history, it like depending on how you're using it and what software or what thing you're using. It's a hard question to answer because it kind of depends on what you're using. But I know there are some sites that have like AI specifically for use with students. I've built bots in Mizuo to revise, and that works. Will do. And yeah, so I would check. It's a rough one, man. That's a really hard question. Sorry, I ran out of steam.
No, that I know. I know. I appreciate that. I think just even having someone be like, all right, here are the words you need to say. Like, here are the buzzwords. Like, but I'm trying to come up with my thing. It's like, all right, yeah, that's what I should be citing. That it's helpful. So appreciate it.
Good. I'm glad. But I feel I've always been good at buzzword bingo. Does anyone else play that with their colleagues? You just like try to say as many nonsense buzzwords in a row as you. Just me, not just me. You're my people. I love this. Okay. So Tiffany, thank you. My friend Adriana upstairs is using it for CER writing too. So I'm going to Tiffany's questions in the chat. I've been using it for my science classes for CER writing. Teach 8th grade. Perfect. Thank you for your service. It's been very useful for evaluating how they've improved. That's cool. And getting better with the rubric part. I've had to rescore with edits to rubric to get the grade I'm looking for. Yeah, so yes. Yes. And I don't think that's a bug. I think that's a feature. Where like in revising the rubric, I'll speak on the I. And feel free to unmute and like share your experience with this. But I end up writing I end up like figuring out and how to talk to my students better by revising the rubric because it just makes me communicate. But like, can you give an example of like
I did the same thing. So I've been using, so part of my student goal is their CER writing because my 8th graders are a victim of COVID. So they've, their early middle school, late elementary years, they've been living on a computer. So they're really great at cutting pasting. But thinking independently is not so good. So that's part of my student goal. So when we started with the CERs, and I had this idea of what I wanted, because I have 85 students. So to have everybody doing CERs every week, I would never leave school. So I started using the CoGrader and I started using the rubric, and it took me a few times. I'd run it through, it graded, I'd start looking at the feedback and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Or it would give feedback on parts that didn't matter to me. So I have gotten a little bit better at like the words I need to say to get it to recognize what I'm looking at. But what I've been using it so far is I've created a spreadsheet where, like you said, you can download that information. And every time I do a CER, I download it and I can compare their scores. So I can see over time how their rubric scores are starting to increase. And then I use that as data and I can send it in for my evaluation and go, look, I'm actually, they're learning. So for me, it's kind of convincing administration that the AI is okay to use. So that's why, and I was hoping, because right now I can't, I'm able to import the work from Google Classroom, but the way our security is set up, I can't send it back. for whatever reason. So what I've had to do, and it's not horrible, but so I will cut out the feedback and then I just paste it into Google Classroom when I return, so it's a couple extra clicks, but it's still way faster than me like reading every individual one. So I wanted to attend this to kind of get some ideas as to how I can kind of convince my tech department that, it's safe and this is useful for students. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. If and Ala, feel free to correct me, but I think I'm sure that we would be able to have somebody schedule a meeting with your IT peeps and talk to them like IT person to IT person.
That'd actually be great. So
If
that's a great idea. I can definitely see if that's something that they'd be willing to do.
yeah, we'd be grateful too, because we would learn stuff. Like, I mean, this is still new. We are all still learning like how to navigate this.
I almost have the English teacher on my team convinced. She did try to use it to grade one of her essays, and she got really frustrated with the rubric. I tried to tell her that you have to like kind of finesse it at first. So thank you for sharing that document, because I am going to share that with her to help her kind of refine her rubrics. But it's been such a time saver that I think if I can get more teachers on board, we'll be able to better convince the tech department that this is worth it. So
yeah, that is one thing. So one thing I do know about many teachers is if just because IT says no, we often find a way. So I'm not trying to suggest that anybody should violate their district's privacy policies. That's not what I'm looking for. But one way to give feedback in CoGrader, and I'm going to share this just to this. I got hired by Pearson to grade ed TPAs, and I started using CoGrader to like pitch some ideas through it initially. And it's like a 20-page portfolio. So I was playing with it until I finally decided I was too busy and wouldn't actually be able to finish the training. But one way that's helpful to export the feedback is if you print it. And is this still showing like the print box on my screen? Is that? Yeah. So you can see here the feedback's really long because the EdTPA rubric is really long. Whoops. But wait. Oh no. Here. So I haven't looked at this one in a hot minute. So I'm trying to wait. So many Zoom windows. I don't have a second screen here. Planning. Where's the feedback again? Sorry, I was really into. Oh, here. It randomly put it on this page for some reason. Most things are not nearly as long as the EdTPA portfolios. So it will. So I'm really hoping it works, but this way I didn't like throw my students' names on a recorded thing, So like if you do that, it would use print budget, but you could print it off and just hand it to students. Like that's one way to do it. It's not ideal, but there is something also kind of virtual, or there is a value in having paper copies of things that you can like highlight. And I've used like color-coded highlighting. They highlight parts of their paper to match the feedback to a peer's paper. And I've done that with classes, especially that are bad at giving peer feedback. So the print feedback button may be faster, but it sounds like what you're doing is it's a fair workaround. It's not ideal, but I agree.
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's just a couple extra clicks. That's what's not. And what I've been doing is particularly on the first draft or whatnot, as I like the glow and grow, like I really like that part. Kind of gives them just a general overview. And then instead of giving them all, like I'll pick 2 or 3 of the key ones that I really want them to focus on. And I'll just paste that. So but like I said, it's still faster than me typing it all out. And reading, 100% through every CER and highlighting and all that. So So I am getting better at it. So it's been a learning curve for me too. So um, I have found, I saw that there in the chat, like sometimes when you run it, you get that error.
Oh yeah,
So I don't, is that like just a Wi-Fi thing, or is that just a,
that's an Aleph question.
yeah.
So that
I mean, I
can,
usually just rerun it, but
yeah, so it might happen in 3 different scenarios. One of them is CoGrader gets the first submission from a student. So if for some reason your assignment has multiple submissions, so like a Google slide and a Google Doc and other stuff, that might be one of the possible scenarios. So it's pulling like a Google slide instead of the doc, and then there's an input error. The second one is the AI is misbehaving, which happens sometimes. Like the response we get from the AI is not what we expected, so there's an error. Usually, if you regrade, it solves the problem, and then the grade will show up. And then the third one is there's no multiple files, regrading doesn't work. Then it's a bug, which honestly it's the rare one. It's not common to happen. And if that happens, then you can go to the chat, the blue button down there, and talk to us, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that happened to me today with one student. It just kept happening. So I eventually just like had to take him out and re-upload his, and it worked fine. So it's those are, yeah. I have the same bugs. You're not crazy, or you're not doing it wrong. Okay, so I want to go to, I'm sorry, your Zoom name is HCuff, and I'm sure that's not your name.
Yeah, I'm Hillary.
Hi, Hillary. Sorry,
Hi.
thank you. So how easy is it to drop a rubric into the system, and what format does it need to be in? I want to go. Can you guys see my screen again?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So on the left here, when you log in, I can add a rubric because that doesn't have any of my student stuff on it, but rubrics, add rubric, create new rubric, or select one from the library. So there are a bunch of pre-made ones sorted by subject area that you can then revise from. And these are, yeah, they're not like perfect. There is no perfect rubric, but like the AP ones honestly are pretty good. They're written well for AI. But depending, what do you teach, Hillary?
English.
English? Oh, cool. Me too. So what I've done is there's 3 different ways here where it's generate via. For the AI generator, you just use a prompt. For the upload CSV, this is if you have a rubric you already want. Then you upload it. There is, whoops, I will find it, but because I'm only on one screen, stuff's getting, wait, there we go. All of your faces were over the button. If you download the template here, it'll download the template. You can open it and then paste the rubric where it makes the most, like where it should go, and upload that way, and that'll auto-populate it. Another option, and I actually like this. So I'm teaching English for 9th through 10th grades, and I would really like students to meet. This is where I'd have to look up the standard again. Let's go with an argument. Pick the standards, generate rubric. What I like about this feature is it actually generates a rubric that includes, whoops, where are you? It includes something that helps AI grade better, which is examples and counterexamples. And by adding the factuals and counterfactuals, the AI is better able to say, oh, I recognize this. If this is met, then it gets this grade. So that's one of the ways. If you generate it through the standards, you are limited by the language of the Common Core standards, which was written by a massive committee with only, I think, 2 teachers on it, maybe. But like, it's a place to start. And you'd have a standards aligned rubric that does look for certain things. What I always do though is I change the point values. I change them so that like it doesn't if I don't know, they don't have to get perfect to get 100. They like if they get one approaches expectations, they'll end up with like a slightly lower grade instead of failing, you know?
Right.
Yeah. A 1 through 4 rubric on 1, 2, 3, 4. The math doesn't math. And my students get real anxious. But yeah, so those are some different ways to generate rubrics in CoGrader.
Okay.
I did come up with a solution for the 1 through 4 though. So
Alright.
if you, like, I just use it as a standards base. So I have a scale that I use, like, you know, a 4 is, you know, 100, a 3 is like 75 to 80. And so I just take the total divided by 4, and that gives the GPA of the score. So if they get like a 2.5, that's a C. If they get, so that's how I did it. So that I didn't have to worry about playing with the numbers, and that seemed to work. And the kids are familiar with the 4-point like system. So if I give them a 3.5, they kind of know what that means. So that's how I've kind of figured that out.
So what's goofy is I feel like I've kind of stumbled into a similar kind of thing where I just changed the point value to the approximate GPA for the letter grade that I want them to earn for that level. And I don't, because I can't, we're using Infinite Campus, but like the janky version. So I can't make it do anything.
Yeah, we're still on a 100-point scale. So when I put grades in, I still have to put it in as a number between 0 and 100. So I kind of created this little like converter for myself that if they get a 3.5, this is the grade they get. If they get a 3.6, this is the grade they get. So that's helped me a little bit. And so when I use a rubric like this, it's on a 4-point scale. I don't have to do any kind of calculations.
That is handy. Thank you. Yeah, are you guys cool if we start to wrap up? Is that all good? Okay.
Andrew, before I wrap up, let me just add something to the rubric part. I think one of the things that we've already mentioned, but I'd like to reinforce is it's common that when you're grading something, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg problem. You get to the end and you realize that it's not exactly what you wanted. But when you created the rubric, you didn't really know what you wanted. So you realize that when you get to the end. So it's fairly common, and it's okay to go back and forth. It like we do it all the time too. And when you change something, there's a new feature that it prompts you to regrade everything. So I think someone was mentioning that in the chat. So if you change your rubric, so you're at the end of the final screen, if you added the rubric or the extra instructions, it's going to pop up a screen like, do you want to regrade everything? And I actually don't recommend you do that. If you changed too much, you cancel and you regrade one. And if that's the intended outcome, you come back and then you regrade again. And then everything is regraded based on the changes that you've made. I was gonna say something else, but I think you're gonna say that about the certification later. So I will leave that to you.
Thanks. No, you read my mind, man. Yeah, I just wanted to share this slide too. This is just like what's next if you're looking for, you know, kind of like how to use CoGrader basics, and that does include some of the how to upload the rubric stuff. Or if you have a colleague who just needs like who needs like a monkey see, monkey do thing to watch someone do it, but you don't want to be the person who shows them, please share the bronze certification with them. Ooh, thanks, Tiffany. I'm going to steal that. So to save your colleagues time, if you want to share this with them, just go to cograder.com/resources. That'll take you to this page that has, you know, like everything. That's silver certification that it says coming soon. We're actually finally like, we're just making the final tweaks to that before it's released. So that should be out in a day or two, something like that. And the silver certification is really about how to revise your rubrics to make the AI grading more accurate and the feedback higher quality. So that's what we built that one for. And check us out on the socials and the CoGrader teacher Facebook group. That's where I'm trying to post more, you know, like end of the year, May kind of craziness, but we got stuff on YouTube. There's more. This webinar is recorded in a different version, but there's also a version for AP teachers. There's a ton of, there's some other stuff on our YouTube channel. We got a bunch of stuff on Instagram, TikTok, all of them at CoGrader, and join the CoGrader teacher Facebook group, talk, chat, share with your friends. Like the more people that use CoGrader, honestly, the more colleagues we have to work with. And the more we get to do stuff like this, where I get to steal all of your good ideas, and I'm really grateful for that. So yeah,